Anquan Boldin, what is going through your mind today, Anquan? It's a big macro question, but I would love to know what's in your mind and in your heart at this very moment as you call into the show.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's a big question, but I think I'm at a point now with what's going on in our country of trying to pinpoint the problems that we've continued to come across time and time again in this country. Obviously, I mean, you had to be sleeping under a rock in order to not know what's going on in our country right now, especially with, what happened with Mr. Floyd, what happened with Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery recently. And the thing that keeps coming back is, how does this keep happening? And how does it keep happening without accountability? And I think that's the question that I've been looking at and trying to answer. And I think for so long we've missed the mark. We are talking about, community policing. We're talking about body cameras. We're talking about all of these solutions. And none of them hit the mark. And you can do all of the community policing you want. And you have a situation, let's just say you do community policing for 10 years. And you have a situation like what happened in Minneapolis happened. All of the work that you've done and your department has done for the last 10 years with community policing goes out the window when there is no accountability for what's happening. And the reason I say that is because there's a fight in this country that has to be had. A lot of people have avoided that fight. And the fight that I'm talking about is qualified immunity. That's the thing that nobody is talking about.
So let's talk about it. What do you mean by that, Anquan? Because again, we're as you're saying this, we're showing streets of this nation. We're also seeing it internationally. The attention that is being brought to the matter at hand in a way that I think it feels unprecedented to me. But again, I'm a 50-year-old white guy. I want to. What do you mean by that? So now that there's potentially more attention being paid here.
Right. So what I mean by that is there is language in, number one, the Supreme Court, and there is language in union contracts that allows for officers to not be held accountable. So, number one, in the Supreme Court, which is actually something that I think people are starting to look more into as of recently, is the immunity piece from the Supreme Court, which no government official, and I think government officials, especially, one of the things that's really jacked up is prosecutors, like attorneys, your state's attorney and your district attorneys. These prosecutors who have complete immunity, meaning no matter what they do, they're not held accountable. And I'll give you an example of it, right? So take the Ahmaud Arbery case, for example.
Mm-hmm.
There were, 3 prosecutors on that case? And the first prosecutor denied law enforcement from arresting those 2 guys, the McMichaels, right? And then it came to light that there was a conflict of interest. That first prosecutor had to recuse himself, and then she passed it to another prosecutor who she knew would do the exact same thing that she was going to do. And luckily, we found out that there was a conflict of interest with the second prosecutor, which means he had to recuse himself. Now, before he recused himself, he tried to taint that case by saying, I found them doing no wrong. They were well within their rights to be doing what they did. They are innocent. And he was out of line for doing that. He was against the law for doing that. But because he and the first prosecutor has immunity, complete immunity, nothing will be done against them. Nothing will be done to hold them accountable. Now let's go to law enforcement or police. A lot of people don't know that there are contracts between cities and the unions, the police unions.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of languages in the contracts that allow for officers to go unpunished. Every contract has different language in it, but there's two parts to those contracts. There's one part that talks about the financing, and then there's a second part that talks about the discipline. And that's where we as a nation have to start looking. Because what kind of system allows an officer with 18 prior complaints, 2 of them being shootings, to continue to be on the force?